Thanks for that kind introduction, Alan, and just thank you so much for the important work you do chairing ROMA. And I want to thank all of you for being here this morning. I wish I could say that I had a little better connection with Mother Nature to make the weather and the roads better, but I hope you enjoy the beautiful white snow that we have out there. I want to take a moment to just acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit, and that today Toronto is home to many Indigenous people from all across Turtle Island. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet on this land, and I want to acknowledge my responsibility as a steward of this place, not only for today and tomorrow, but for the next 7 generations. And I can tell you, as somebody who grew up on a farm, my mom and dad always emphasized the importance of stewardship. Stewardship for our community, stewardship for our land, and stewardship for our farm. And I want to say that my mom and dad taught me the importance of caring for the people in the places that we love, to protect the farmland and the water that sustain us, and to serve my community. And I know that those rural values of family and community, stewardship and sustainability guide the decisions I make at Queen's Park. And I know they guide the decisions you make each and every day as leaders in our rural communities. And I want to thank each and every person in this room and municipal leaders all across this province for the essential and invaluable work you do as stewards of our communities and of our local governments. Thank you. I want to guarantee you that you have a partner in my office and a partner in the Green Party of Ontario, a partner who will stand with you to defend our communities, a partner who will stand with you to protect the farmland and the water that sustain us. And I want to thank the numerous municipalities who stood out and spoke out to support protecting the Greenbelt and water. I want to thank the thousands of Ontarians over the last month who have talked about the importance of protecting farmland and water in the Greenbelt. And I want to acknowledge the government for listening to what people were saying and backing off on Schedule 10 of Bill 66. Because the bottom line for me is that farmland and clean water is not red tape. Protecting farmland and water is essential to public health, the environment, and our economy. I want to remind the Premier that the food and farming sector as a whole employs over 800,000 people in Ontario, contributing over $40 billion to Ontario's economy. And it makes absolutely no sense to pave over the asset base that generates that wealth and creates those jobs. And that's why I will work with you not only to protect the Greenbelt and clean water, but to expand protections for prime farmland and source water regions, because it's so essential to our economy, it's so essential to our communities, and it's so essential to our future. And I will partner with you to champion not only defending the farms, land, and water, but to champion the profitability of our farmers who contribute so much to our rural communities and our rural economy. A country that cannot feed itself is as insecure as a country that cannot defend itself. And that's why I'm going to be pushing this government to look at ways that we can use mid-rise development, inclusionary zoning, secondary suites, and brownfield redevelopment to provide the tools we need to build affordable housing in this province without paving over the farmland and threatening the water that sustains us. And I can tell you as a small business owner, I will work with you to reduce the paperwork burden, to reduce duplication, and to reduce red tape that gets in the way of doing business. But I will never consider public health protections, farmland protections, and water protections to be red tape. To prosper, I believe we have to skate to where the puck is going and not where it's been. We have to support our small businesses, our entrepreneurs, and our innovators. We have to embrace the fastest growing sector of the global economy, which is the clean economy. A $7 trillion a year economic opportunity that Ontario should be leading, not following. Embracing the jobs of the future is critical to providing opportunities for young people from rural and remote communities to stay home or return home. I want to share the story of a gentleman I met recently, a young man going back to college at age 32 to become an electrician. His name is Jonathan, and he's worked in the city in insurance and sales, but he decided that he wanted to make a difference back home. He comes from Muskoka, and he chose to study renewable energy at Sheraton College. Why? Because he said to me that he wants to go back to the country to help people in his community to get off the grid. His family taught him self-reliance, and he wants to help rural Ontarians to be self-reliant today and tomorrow. He sees where the puck is going. Jonathan sees in Ontario where your truck is electric. As a matter of fact, Ford, the motor company, not the government, just introduced its first electric pickup truck just this month. The way Jonathan sees it, he will be able to charge his truck with solar panels, cheaper than it costs him to fill it up with gas or diesel. And then the truck will be a low-cost battery pack that he will use to power his tools to do jobs in rural and remote locations. He sees it as a way to save money, a way to return home, and a way to become a job creator and an innovator in his home community. So I want to be clear that when we talk about the clean economy, when we talk about the innovation economy, it's not just a big city thing. It's happening in the trades. It's happening on farms. It's happening in small businesses and rural communities all across Ontario. I know on our farm, my dad innovated every day. His mantra, solve problems, find solutions. And we cannot do that in today's world if we are not connected to fast, reliable, affordable broadband internet. Go ahead. It is way past time. It is way past time that people from rural communities go with cap in hand to government to finally deliver on broadband access. Living in rural Ontario is about living in strong communities. And keeping them strong means keeping them connected. And Greens will work with you and fight for you to have affordable, reliable access to broadband, the electricity grid of the 21st century. And Greens will also partner with you to invest in the public services your communities need. So we are calling on the government to amend the funding formula for rural hospitals and rural schools. Rural residents deserve to have access to high-quality, accessible, affordable public health care. Seniors deserve to have access to appropriate housing close to home and the health care services they need. And young families deserve to have access to schools in their rural communities. We are calling on the government to not cut funding for the Ontario Municipal Partnership Fund and to release the 2019 funds now. Predictable, sustainable funding equals responsible, long-term planning a fiscally responsible approach to asset management that I know municipal leaders can deliver if you have long-term, sustainable, predictable funding. Shortchanging communities by cutting funding for infrastructure, schools, and healthcare is something we will oppose and we will fight. We will demand that this government not balance the budget on the backs of municipal property taxpayers and municipal governments. I want to remind the Premier there's only one taxpayer, and the municipal property tax base is maxed out. And it's time to look for other ways to balance. Shortchanging public services that people rely on is not the way to build communities that people want to live in, nor will it attract business investment from companies that are looking for skilled workers, connected communities, reliable infrastructure, and a healthy environment. So Greens support a balanced and responsible approach to get Ontario's fiscal house in order. We cannot cut our way to prosperity, nor can we mortgage our children's future to debt. Greens will look for ways to save money. For instance, placing reasonable limits on municipal liability, for example, so that you can save money on insurance costs. Or putting an end to the Liberal government's unfair hydro plan that, by the way, costs the province around $4 billion a year, which is about the equivalent of what municipal governments receive from the province. But we will also look for ways to raise additional revenue. We need a balanced approach, and we will start by raising resource levies in a way that we don't give away our natural resource wealth, and ensure that we share that funding with northern and Indigenous communities. High-quality public services require investment and responsible fiscal management. That is what I will be fighting for at Queen's Park. So I want to close by looking at the people in this room and asking you to think about what kind of legacy we want to leave our children and grandchildren. I got into politics because I want to leave a livable legacy, a sustainable legacy. And I know the people of Ontario are problem solvers, not problem deniers. And so while the Premier may be backtracking on our commitments to climate action, I'm asking you to work with us to commit to climate action. The Insurance Bureau of Canada just released their annual statistics for last year, and Ontario alone experienced $1.3 billion in insurable losses due to extreme weather events. And municipalities are on the front lines of bearing those costs. Through the first 6 months of this year alone, extreme weather from climate change costs the average household in this province $350 a year. Those costs are only going to go up. And a responsible government, a fiscally responsible government, is going to do everything possible to mitigate those risks, to avoid those risks, to make sure that we make the investments to adapt to a changing world. And I'm going to ask you, as leaders in our communities, to step up and demand that the province take action. Not waste our tax dollars fighting climate action, but actually take action, because our children and grandchildren deserve it. And I know that rural communities, and in particular farmers, will play a critically important role in solving the challenges that we face in the 21st century. And I want to work with you to deliver those sustainable solutions. for our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. Thank you so much for the amazing work that you do. Thank you for the leadership that you provide our communities. And you can always reach out to my office as a partner. Thank you.